Today's episode, I'll be talking about the Bliss Bloss Shaw. Hi, I'm Amber and welcome to episode 2 of the Design Tales, my new podcast where I share design tales. I talk about the process of my designs and talk about yarn, colour tips, techniques, anything else involved in a particular design. I'll generally focus on a new design and sometimes I'll revisit some older designs. Firstly, thank you all so much for your lovely comments, feedback, support of my first episode. It was really quite heartwarming to see that it was enjoyed by so many of you and that you're interested in more. So here I am, back with more. And I plan to keep making these, especially when I have a new design out. And also I'm here to answer questions. If you have questions you'd like me to answer, chat about, please pop them in the comments. If you've got a favourite design you'd like me to revisit in one of these episodes, please let me know about those too and I'll see what I can do. I haven't been asked any questions since the last episode, so I'll just get straight into talking about my newest design, which is what I'm excited to share with you today, and that is the Bliss Bloss Shawl, which I'm wearing. The middle size version, and there's 2 other sizes on either side of me that I'll be diving into today. Bliss Bloss Shawl is knit with Intarsia technique of knitting. So the colour work is worked in sections, and this means that you'll have to carry little amounts of yarn for each of those sections across the row. You won't be carrying a thread all the way across and back again. And so that means you'll generally make smaller balls of yarn or little amounts of yarn that you can carry behind the work. And Intarsia knitting can be daunting for some people, but honestly I feel like the hardest part about it is just juggling those bits of yarn. So for me personally, I find having a good surface to knit those on is really helpful. Like I might get a big tray, for example, and put all the yarns on so I can just keep it all organised if I'm knitting with my knitting on my lap. Otherwise, I might sit at the table. I'm working on a more intricate Intarsia pattern at the moment, and I'm just sitting at the table with that one, going step by step and taking it slow. And apart from that, apart from the yarn tangle, it's just about being sure to twist as you change colour of yarn. So it's that simple. You're knitting across back and forth, whether it be purl or knit stitches according to the pattern, and making sure you twist those yarns. So if you're knitting with colour 1, when you're picking up colour 2, you make sure you put colour 1 over colour 2 and bring colour 2 underneath, and that just secures the 2 colours together. And that's it. That's the hardest part, I think, about Intarsia knitting. So I do encourage you to not feel too daunted by the prospect of it. I also have a tutorial on my YouTube channel for Intarsia knitting, so you can go and check that out, and it comes with a free little download for a chart, an Intarsia chart, a little love heart pattern. So you can go and try it out, have a practice and see if it's for you or not. Before going ahead and investing in the shawl pattern, perhaps you can try it out for yourself. And I mean, it is a little fiddly and it takes a bit to get used to. So I do urge you to just give it a go, give yourself some time and space to try it out as a new technique. A couple of our testers commented that this was their first Intarsia project, the Bliss Bloss Shawl, and they found it really easygoing. They enjoyed the process. It was easier than they thought it would be and created the cutest little shawl. Yeah, I do encourage you to give it a go. Who knows, you might find a technique that you love. At the very least, knit yourself a cute shawl with flowers. Bliss Bloss Shawl is a garter stitch shawl, triangular shape, knit from tip to tip, with a stockingette Intarsia flower motif in the middle, and it has options for 1 flower, 3 flowers, which I'm wearing, 5 flowers, and you can easily expand to add 7 flowers if you like. So it has a few size options. It's knit in DK weight yarn and is a delightful little knit, and it's lovely to wear. The design process behind Bliss Bloss, it's sometimes a little hard to remember where the designs form from exactly. This one, I would say, was brewing for a while. I'd been thinking about triangular shawls and colour work and doing Intarsia, and I came to the idea that I wanted to do flowers. I had been thinking spots, but then I moved toward a flower idea, and I've got my sketchbook here, which is very basic sketching ideas. When I'm thinking about a pattern design, I'll often sketch out a few shape ideas. It depends on what I'm designing, but there will often be a few quick sketches while I get my head around perhaps the shaping first or the pattern that I'm working towards, design, pattern. With this one, I knew I wanted a triangular shawl. I wanted to knit a shape that I enjoy wearing, and on my little sketch, I've got cow as an idea as well, which is easily something that I could develop this particular pattern into. I have the triangular shawl that it ended up being with 3 flowers, and I had some little dots. I thought I might do some of those centered dots scattered through the shawl as well, and then the small 1 flower version. And then a couple of other shaping ideas as well, where I was thinking about how I would do the shaping. And in the end, I went with quite simple tip to tip shaping, as you can see. And those other ideas are there. I often flick back through my sketchbooks and, you know, there's a kernel of an idea that perhaps I'll revisit down the track sometime. So the basic idea formed from that for me. I wanted to have large flowers. I wanted them to be the statement. As I said, I had considered doing some dots with the circles the same size, and decided pretty early I just wanted to keep it simple, a more stylized design, so just the flowers. And I also had a very clear idea about these colours. I really wanted this particular green, which I didn't have in my stash at the time. So part of the process of the design was trawling through online stores, and I was pretty much just looking in Australian stores because I was eager to get the yarn quickly. So I was looking through local stores for particularly the colour, this green colour. I knew I had other colours of DK weight in my stash, which I did use for these dots. But I didn't have that particular shade of green, and it just was like a little obsession I have. Sometimes I get a colour obsession and have to hunt high and low for that particular colour. So I found it. I found this Isajar yarn, and it's their Jensen yarn in an online store in Australia. And I ordered that, and also this colour for the flowers. And while I was waiting for that to come, I decided to develop the pattern and work on the small version using some yarn that I had already. And the yarn I have in my stash is an Aussie yarn called Woolly 8 ply. It's a DK weight yarn. And I have a few colours of this in my stash, so it's easy to kind of grab when I have an idea. It's a good rustic yarn. I've used it for a few garments and hats and accessories. So I thought I'll get started with this yarn and develop the flower motif. And I decided to make this small scarf, my swatch. So I began by, I knew that the shaping would be this. So I essentially knit it to about as wide as I figured I wanted the flower to be. And then I got some graph paper and started drawing out my flower, charting the flower. I tend to do a bit of that, not on the computer. I do that by hand as an early part of my design process. Sometimes I go straight to the computer and chart out charts there in the chart program, but with this one, I knew I'd be tweaking it quite a bit. So got the pencils, the eraser, the graph paper, and drew my flower, which is actually symmetrical. So it's a mirror image split in half. And also I had to think about knitting because I'm knitting this way, so the flower is actually knit this way, but then is visually seen this way. So thinking a little bit about how that was going to work with knitting. And so for my swatch, my shawl swatch, I knit up to this point. I knit the flower, I knit the first half from my original chart and could see a few places where I wanted to tweak the stitches a bit. So I went back to my drawing board, my chart, and reworked it a little bit and then re-knit it again. And I may have done that 2 or 3 times before I was happy with the final flower result, and then finished off my little sample. And by that time, my yarn had arrived, so I was ready to embark on the big project, and I still hadn't quite finalised this design. As I said before, initially it was going to be 3 flowers, and so my plan was to knit a lot more of the end bit before I knit the first flowers, and I did that. I used this yarn and knit quite a substantial amount, a lot more than this this section here. So I probably went further up, and I think I started the first Intarsia flower and just found that my yarn, this yarn is a little bit thinner than the woolly 8 ply. So it just wasn't giving the same gauge. It wasn't as full and squishy as I wanted it to be. I tried blocking it at that point and the yarn didn't really bloom, so it wasn't kind of going to improve with blocking. So I decided that because I really want this yarn colour, and I'd already worked to the gauge, I'd worked my swatch to that particular gauge. I wanted to keep that gauge for a more general DK weight. I decided that I would add some kid silk mohair with my thinner yarn just to bring it up to that DK weight. So that actually required another online purchase. I didn't have this lovely shade of green, and I hunted around until I found this one, which is not the same brand, but I liked it more than the similar green in this brand. I already had in my stash the Isager brand that worked well with the pinky colour for the flowers. So, and a little bit of other colours in my stash that I used as well. So that was that process, and then as part of that process I realised I wanted to change the design just slightly. So instead of knitting a lot more no colourwork section, I thought, I know, I can knit, and that's when I realised I would knit a 3rd shawl with 3 flowers. So I wanted a really big one with the green yarn, and then I figured that that would be 5 flowers instead of 3, and then I thought a 3 flower version would be a nice size too. So the pattern, each size works to the same stitch count here before working off the charts, and this one only uses 1 chart, which is the center chart, and the chart has, this center chart has a decreasing section here and an increasing section here. So all of the central flowers use that chart to maintain the shaping of the triangular shawl. And then where we have more flowers, so 2 flowers here, are knit using the increase chart, and the chart just has increases along the sides there. And the increase chart is repeated for each flower. So knit to the first section to the number of stitches, then work the increase chart, then work the increase chart again, just working more stitches up the top as you go along. So you could continue on, you could actually knit a 3rd increase chart flower, which would then give you a total of 7 flowers, or as many as you want, before then working the center flower, and then back the other way, working the decrease charts where the project starts decreasing to this point. So with the 3 flower version, you would just work the initial part, 1 increase flower, the central flower, and then the final decrease flower to the end. So that was the evolution that happened from knitting during the process. Sometimes it happens like that I'll have a bit of a plan and it might evolve as I'm working on the project, which it certainly did with this one. I'm happy for the way it evolved. And then other times I might be quite clear and specific and just go to the plan that I'm working toward for the project. So that's a little bit about why I have different yarns. I probably, had I had this green in the woolly yarn, I probably would have just used this one yarn for all of the samples. But as I said, from the outset, I was quite obsessed with this colour combination and that lovely green with pops of bright colours. That was what I was pretty excited about. And I love it. I'm glad I persevered with those colours. They delight me. As part of the evolution too, during the test, a left-handed knitter was testing the shawl and knit the first part, but left-handed. So on the right-handed version, the increases are going this way, whereas on the left-handed version, they were going this way for her. And she asked if I'd be able to adjust the chart so that the increase flower would also increase on the same edge, so she could continue to knit her left-handed version of the shawl. And it was simple enough to do. I hadn't had that request before, I haven't done that before, but I flicked the chart, all the charts, and now there's a left-handed option for this shawl as well, which is a first and quite exciting. So hopefully that's useful to some other left-handed knitters. I decided to keep them separate, so there's 2 files. The pattern has the standard right-handed original version, and then there's the left-handed version, so you'd work from one or the other depending on your dominant hand. So another little evolution that happened during the testing process. So with the yarn, I do suggest in the pattern that a stickier yarn is a good choice for this project. So maybe a non-superwash, something that's got a little bit of grip to it. It can help with the project, and as you're knitting it, the colours just kind of holding together a bit more readily. That said, you can certainly use a superwash yarn. I've used superwash yarn for some of the little central circles, so I've mixed 2 kinds of yarn in my projects, and some of our testers used just superwash yarn for the whole shawl, and they turned out beautifully. So it's absolutely an option. You just need to be aware when you're blocking that superwash yarn will stretch more in blocking, so just make sure that you swatch and get your blocked gauge, row gauge, as you would do for non-superwash yarn as well. The gauge information is always based on the blocked gauge. And yeah, just being sure, you know, it's a little bit slipperier when you're working it. So just being sure to give it a nice little tug and keep the yarn nice and tight at those parts where you're changing colours. And yeah, so you can use superwash yarn too. And speaking of yarn, I just wanted to mention a fantastic yarn resource, which is yarnsub.com. I will link them in the show notes below. They are a fantastic resource. They have a database of lots of yarn from all over the world. Not necessarily every yarn, but a pretty good range of yarns. And you can either type in the yarn, for example, if you found a pattern that had a specific yarn specified and you weren't really sure, you wanted to replace it with something else that was accessible to you, whether it was more affordable or more like local to you, you can type in the yarn that the pattern suggests, and then the database will bring up a list of comparable yarns with similar fibre content and behaviour. And it's a great way to find alternative yarns. It's a really quick and easy way to substitute yarns and find something perhaps that's a bit closer to you, or you might even find that you have a similar yarn in your stash, but you weren't really sure whether that would work or not. So YarnSub is an excellent resource when you're looking for yarn for a project. You don't necessarily have to use the yarn that's in the pattern. So that's a little bit of the story of the Bliss Bloss Shawl. Our testers knit some absolutely beautiful versions. It always blows my mind when I see other versions knit for my patterns. I'm like, oh wow, those colours. I wish I feel inspired by colour choices that people make. It's pretty exciting, and you'll see that the tester versions are really, really interesting and gorgeous and so different, such a different effect. For example, a tester used the same colour for the main colour, the background colour, as the centre of the flower, which just gives it a completely different effect. Another tester used a different colour for each flower, and I think they may have used the same colour for the centre of each flower, but you can easily do whatever you like, different colour for the outside and centre of each flower. It's a great way to use up little bits of yarn that you've got too, and a fun way to just play with colour. The small version can be a great little swatch for you as well as you practice Intarsia and get the hang of it, and makes a really sweet little gift. A nice, quick, cozy little knit that's very appealing. And there's lots of ways to wear these little cuties. The small one makes more of a cowl size kerchief version of the project. And you can still wear it as a shawl over the shoulders, wear it as a bandana even. What have we got going on here? A little flower hat. The large one is much cozier. You'll get a lot more wrapping around with that. And I found when I was styling it, you could have that up if you need a bit of warmth around your face, or fold it down and bring the flower motifs up a little bit so you can see those clearly. There's, again, if you fold the top part and just kind of wear it more scarf-like around your shoulders, twist it around, think more scarf. I like to style them like this, so fold it in half, either with the end tucked down a little bit or not, and then bring the ends around and through for a nice little way to wear it. And the larger size you can also wear as a shawl over your shoulders. Bring it around the front. Can put a shawl pin in there to fasten it and tie it at the front. I like a shawl like that when I'm working at the computer, just something to warm my shoulders. So yeah, there's quite a few ways you can wear this sweet little shawl. And I'll put in the show notes below links to the pattern, the Intarsia tutorial, the project pages of our wonderful test knitters. I'm also going to post a gallery of some of their finished objects now, so you can have a look at some of those beautiful pieces. And yeah, you'll find links to everything in my show notes below. And that's all until my next video. I'll make another one when I have another pattern published to share. Maybe I'll sneak another one in before. I do enjoy making these. And if you have any questions, as I mentioned before, post them in the comments below. Send me an email. If there's something you'd like me to chat about on this podcast, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for the slideshow of our wonderful test knitters. See ya.